Hello and welcome back to Animated Banners with CSS. In this lesson, we're going to get started on our banner in Photoshop, and we're going to start by creating a new file. So we're going to go to File, New. We're going to make it 900 pixels wide by 300 pixels tall, and we'll click on OK. Now the banner we're going to create for this course is going to be an advertisement banner for a winter sale. So we're going to have some snowy hills in the background, we're going to have some snow falling, and then we'll have a couple of foreground elements, including an image and some text. And we're going to do the text in HTML, but we're also going to build it out in Photoshop just so that we can see what it's going to look like. So let's start by creating the background for our image, which again is going to be some snowy hills on a blue background. So for our background layer, I'm going to double click over here next to the name of the layer, and then just click on OK, and that will unlock the layer for us. And then I'm going to double click in that same area again to open up our layer styles, and I'm going to apply a gradient to this layer that's going to serve as the sky. So I'm going to click on Gradient Overlay, and I'm going to click on the text itself. Notice that if we click out here, if we just click to check it, it will turn on the gradient overlay, but we don't get the options for it. So click on the text itself, and that will give us the options for our gradient overlay. Then we'll click here on the gradient itself, and that will give us our gradient editor. And then we can edit the colors. So the colors are these handles down here on the bottom of the gradient editor. The handles on the top represent the opacity, and we're not going to mess with the opacity. So as we can see over here in our preview, this color on the left, which is black, is at the bottom of the layer, and the color on the right is at the top of the layer. So for our left handle here, which is the bottom of the gradient, I'm going to double click on that handle, and that gives us a color picker. And down here in our hex value, I'm going to enter in a value of E7F5FF, and that'll give us a light blue color. And again, that color is going to be at the bottom of our gradient. Then it's going to get a little darker as we move up. So I'm going to double click on this right handle here, and that will give us our color picker again. And then for the color value here, the hex value we're going to enter in is B6D2F1. And that gives us a little bit of a darker blue color. We'll click on OK, OK again, and then OK one more time. And that gives us our background gradient. That's the color for our sky. And then the last thing we'll do in this lesson is we'll build a couple of very simple snowy hills, one for the background and one for the foreground. And we're going to do this using the pen tool. So I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to click over here to the left. And before I click, let me go ahead and point out that we're creating a new shape here. And if we click on this drop down, you can see that we have the option to create a shape, a path, or pixels. And we're going to create a shape here. And we want it to create on a new layer. And we can double check that by coming over here to this option and making sure that new layer is selected. So now that we know that that's taken care of, I'm going to click over here about halfway up to create our first anchor point. And then we'll just click and drag across here, click and drag across down here, and then click over here. Then I'm going to close off the shape by clicking down here in the lower right corner, again in the lower left corner, and then again on our initial anchor point that we created to close off that shape. And there's the basic shape that we're going to use. Now you'll notice that I've got a stroke applied to it and no fill. I need to kind of reverse that. So I'm going to turn off the stroke. We'll click on the stroke selector and click on this white box with a red line through it to turn that stroke off. Then we'll go to our fill color, and we're going to use that same gradient. So I'm going to click on the gradient selector here, and then we're going to edit this gradient the same way we did for our background. So our color on the left here, if we double click on that and get our color selector, is going to be a value of E7F5FF. And then we'll double click on the right handle, which is going to be the top color. And we'll give that one a value of B6D2F1. Click on OK. So we'll close that. And if we go to the Move tool, we can see what that shape looks like. And we're not quite done with it yet. What I want to do is give it the appearance that the sun is coming down on top of it, lighting up the snow that's on top of this hill. And the way I'm going to do that is by giving it an inner glow and then adding some noise to that inner glow. So we're going to come to this shape layer that was created, and let's go ahead and double click on the layer name and call it Hill. And then to the right of the layer name, I'm going to double click, and that will open up our layer styles. And I'm going to click on Inner Glow. So if we move this out of the way, we can see that inner glow along the top of the hill. Well, I'm going to take the color for that inner glow right here, which is by default a yellow color. We're going to click on that and change it to white and click on OK. Secondly, I want to spread that out a little more. So I'm going to come down here under Elements to Size and drag that size up quite a bit. Somewhere around there looks good, 43 pixels. And then I want to add some noise to it. So we'll come back up here to Structure and drag over the noise slider just a little bit, not too much. And then we might bring the opacity up a little bit so we can see it better. And that looks pretty good, so we'll click on OK. So that will serve as our background hill. Now let's create our foreground hill, which is really just going to be a copy of this one. So with that hill layer still selected, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command-J or Control-J if you're using a PC, and that will create a copy of the currently selected layer, and we'll see that it calls it hill copy. And I'm just going to change that to hill front. And we'll change this one here to hill back. So we have our foreground and our background. So I'm going to click on hill front and I'm going to flip that over horizontally. So with the hill front layer selected, we'll go up to the edit menu, go down to transform, and we want to flip it horizontally. So flip horizontal, and that flips it over. And then I'm going to grab the hill back layer, and with the move tool selected, I'm just going to hit the down arrow key a few times to nudge that down. And then I want to blend that background hill into the background a little bit more by simply decreasing the opacity of it. So I'm going to grab the opacity slider here with the hill back layer selected, and I'm just going to click and drag that to the left until it blends in with the background a little more, giving it the sense that it's got a little bit of haze in between the two hills, and it just gives it more of a sense of depth. And that takes care of the background for our banner. So before we move forward, let's go ahead and save our file. We'll go to File, Save As, and in the Project Files folder, I'm going to save this as banner01.psd. So as we move forward, we'll save different versions of this, and we'll start again here with banner01. So let's save that, and we'll move on to the next video. Thank you for watching.